Hello, this is David Sandbeck running for Congress in Minnesota's 4th Congressional District, and it's May 15th, 2020. Betty McCollum released a little electronic newsletter. We're going to review that together. So, dear 4th Congressional District, it starts. Today, Betty McCollum says, I'm in Washington, D.C., working to pass the $3 trillion HOPES Act, the latest emergency aid bill responding to the health and economic crisis resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Minnesotans and all Americans are struggling as we live through this crisis. More than 86,000 Americans have lost their lives to the virus. Some 36 million people have lost their jobs and face financial uncertainty. Every family is grappling with challenges, staying healthy, paying bills, and keeping children focused on learning. In the face of this plight, House Democrats are stepping up to confront the overwhelming needs of frontline workers. We'll get back to that. Businesses and all communities. With a national emergency of this magnitude, the federal government has the obligation to respond and protect the American people and the security of the nation. She goes on to highlight the HEROES Act. And before we do, you need to know that this act is actually attacking the pensions, is going to attack pensions of our first responders, of our frontline workers. So this act is a heist. It is a Pelosi scheme, and she's fully complicit in it now. We know from the CARE Act, the first round, who they really cared about, the donor class. 80% of the financial benefits went to the 1%, the millionaire class, the plutocracy, the donor class. It didn't go to the common people. And again, this bill is showing that the interest here, that the heroes are the lobbyists. They're going to go and give your money, the public's money, to corporate lobbyists. That's what's included in this HEROES Act. So who are the heroes to Team Pelosi? It's the corporate lobbyists. Okay, so Betty continues, the HEROES Act will help Minnesotans in a variety of ways. Here are some of the highlights. Betty suggests state, local, and tribal government assistance. This bill honors our heroes by providing emergency funding to keep first responders, health workers, and other essential workers on the job and helping our communities during the crisis. $500 billion for states, $375 billion to local governments, and $20 billion to tribes. So let's talk about that a little bit. We know from the first part of the Pelosi scheme that there wasn't money allocated to governments below 500,000. So now there's this contention, this fighting, this bickering between small states or small counties, small cities, small townships, and how that money is going to be spent. And there is a race to spend this money. There's not a race to stewardship. There's not a race to accountability. Okay, who's in charge of overseeing all this money? The Pelosi team. Okay, the Pelosi scheme, under the Pelosi scheme, has put Representative Jim Clyburn up to the task of being part of the oversight. Well, Clyburn is crooked in the sense that he has misallocated federal funds from the housing agency, the federal housing agency, to a pet project of his, and he's quoted as saying to an accountant, you send the checks where I tell you to send the checks. Anything else is not your concern. And so he is someone who has deliberately misallocated funds, and this is the kind of person that Team Pelosi is putting out in charge. And this is the kind of leadership that Betty is endorsing and sticking with in her video to congressional delegates. As our 4th Congressional District Convention is underway electronically as of yesterday afternoon, she stuck to her guns in defending this Pelosi scheme that continues. All right. So we'll continue with Betty's message here that tribal communities would receive essential services and monies. So they would. Local governments, tribal governments, state governments would receive billions to ensure essential services can continue and replace lost revenue through 2021. All right, we go on to the next topic of direct cash payments. Under this HEROES Act, the bill would provide another round of more substantial economic impact payments of $1,200 per family, up to $6,000 per household. So think about this. $1,200 per household. This new multi-trillion-dollar scheme, if we break it down per capita, that's a little over $6,000 per person. Okay, of that, you're going to get $1,200. $1,200. What we should be doing is an emergency universal basic income, $2,000 a month. There's enough money in this to do that. There's enough money in the last Pelosi, the first bit of the Pelosi scheme to do that. But we're not helping the people. Really, this is peanuts for the people, and this is infinite transfer of wealth to the plutocracy. We'll continue with Betty's benefits of this HEROES Act. Safeguards for our democracy. The bill includes $3.6 billion to ensure we can vote safely in November, including help for states to expand early voting and vote by mail. That's wonderful. We need to expand voting and vote by mail, but what everybody needs to know, and what is not going to be touched upon in this bill, is that the states and the parties can reject those ballots easier than they can your in-person ballots. Now, you have to do what you need to do to be safe and be smart, and make sure you fill out those ballots thoroughly, completely, so that there is no reason to reject that ballot. But one of the ways election fraud happens legally, since the Voting Rights Act has been successfully attacked through the Supreme Court, is they're going to attack your ballot. Maybe you said Jim instead of James on your name. Maybe you X'd the bubble instead of filled it out completely. Throw that out. So I'd encourage you to look at Greg Palast. Look into Greg Palast. He has done a wonderful job documenting this, and he has just come out with a new bestseller book, How Trump Stole 2020, and this is one of the ways they're going to steal 2020, the Republicans, is through the shenanigans and not counting votes. Let's continue with Betty's assessment of the HEROES Act. Homeowner renter assistance, $175 billion in new funding would help renters and homeowners make monthly rent, mortgage, and utility payments and other housing-related costs. Take a look at that. Now, this one-time payment isn't cutting the mustard. It is not enough. It's a one-time. It's a second-time insult. We had the first insult. Now we have the new insult. When we know the bulk of this is a transfer of wealth upward to the top. 80% of it is going to the millionaire class, the donor class, the plutocracy. So not enough. Let's continue. Extension of unemployment benefits. Weekly $600 in federal unemployment payments would be extended until January 2021, providing a vital safety net for the record number of people out of work. That's excellent. We need to do that. Absolutely. Peanuts again. Peanuts for the people. Endless transfer of wealth upward for the plutocracy. And so it's good that we have some peanuts going to the people, but it's totally insufficient. We'll continue. Worker safety. OSHA would be required to develop and implement infection control plans based on CDC expertise to help prevent workers from getting sick on the job. So here's the problem. We're not defending those workers in other ways. We're not providing paid parental leave. We're not providing paid sick leave as a mandatory requirement from employers. We need to do that. We need to protect workers, and we're not doing that. This isn't about really protecting workers. This is a cop-out. This is the bare minimum that we should be doing. And then the other thing is we're forcing people back to work before it's safe, before they have PPE, and we know that this system is failing workers. All right, so continuing on, more subsidy for SNAP and $1.1 billion for WIC, and expanded eligibility for these programs to help families keep food on the table. Wonderful. Again, bare minimum. That is a bare minimum expectation. Absolute minimum. We should be doing that, absolutely. But again, compared to who this is going to benefit the most, we can do better than the minimum. We should have someone championing better than the minimum. Let's continue. Support for small businesses and nonprofits strengthens the Paycheck Protection Program and provides $10 billion in grants through the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So let's talk about that program. Big banks are channeling that money to pre-existing relationships that they have with businesses. So they're only dispersing those funds to their previous clients and not to new clients so that they can service older debts, for example. So the way that this is being organized, there isn't enough guidance leveling the playing field for small businesses. And we've seen big business or larger businesses, larger chain restaurants, for example, taking advantage of this program while still laying off people. And I get the restaurant industry is suffering. We need to help them, but the oversight isn't there and the guidance isn't there. It's a free-for-all. All right, let's continue. Health coverage protects Americans from losing their employer-provided health insurance and creates a special enrollment period for the Affordable Care Exchanges for uninsured Americans. Okay, so they're selling you insurance in the middle of a pandemic. These companies have a perverse incentive to prevent you from getting access to care. They profit when you're denied access to care. It is a continuation of our homicidal health crime system. Who the hell can afford COBRA in the middle of a pandemic when they've lost their job, when they're living paycheck to paycheck? Who's gonna, this is basically a bailout to the insurance industry, which, if you really think about it, when people don't have insurance, they're not going to go to the doctor under that plan. If they do go under that plan, they're not covered under any plan. They've lost their insurance. So the insurance company is actually saving money, and then you're not getting procedures done. They're not making payments on those procedures, so they're saving money. And so it's a backdoor give out to the insurance industry. Okay? If you're unemployed and you let's say you have the money to buy insurance, great. We're going to supplement that, and then we're going to incentivize, we're going to continue the cycle of they still have the perverse incentive to deny you access to care. Let's continue about how this emergency package helps workers, families, homeowners, renters, and communities weather this storm. I hope that after the House passes this bold legislation, Republicans in the Senate will stop making excuses and pass it swiftly as well. The Senate under Mitch McConnell is a disaster. They block everything, Stonewall, all kinds of good legislation. That's terrible. But we need a representative to advance a people's agenda in the House. And unfortunately, Betty is doing the bare minimum, standing by these fast transfers of wealth to the 1%. Let's continue with Betty's newsletter. With so much at stake, Americans don't have time to wait. If you have questions or need assistance, visit mccollum.house.gov, coronavirus, or leave a message at my office at 651-224-9191. As always, thank you for being a engaged consultant. Sincerely, Betty McCollum. All right. So, yes, reach out to Betty McCollum and tell her that this Pelosi scheme is not good enough, that they need more time to deliberate, that these fast-track bills that are organized largely by Pelosi as the Speaker of the House, as our party leader, she has ultimate influence and authority over the process of these fast-track bills, over the amount of debate that goes into it, and the ideology and the solutioning that they put into it. So the SALT cap elimination that's being put into this HEROES Act, they're turning wealthier homeowners into heroes when it is the common people that really need this assistance. So that's another thing where this is a massive transfer of wealth to those that have, and the rest of us will continue to have not. I'm David Sandbeck. Thank you for your time and attention. Again, there's a convention going on right now, so if you're a delegate, let's deliver a competitive primary. Thank you.